All right, everybody. It looks like we have the very first official live stream here on the YouTube channel, and this is a preview for the Barcelona versus Sevilla game. But if you happen to have found this at a later date and you already know what happened in the Sevilla game, well, there's a few little listener questions here that I thought we could answer that were left over from episode 261 or 621. There we go, early in the week with Robbie Lowe. So I figured we do some of those. And so this stream is going to be going about 25 minutes and we'll answer those listener questions. And then it'll be time for the Sevilla match where I'll be heading over to BigUp for the watch along over there. So a lot of exciting stuff going on today in the Barcelona uniform, in the Barcelona universe, I should say, which starts a huge week for the club. And yeah, I guess for me too, but for the club, especially with Sevilla, then Bayern Munich, and then Real Madrid in what is the week of the first half of the season. I think we can say without fail that, yeah, results could go completely sideways later on in the fall in a way that, in a bad way, kind of reflects what's going to happen in the spring. But this is the week that could define who Barcelona is and who Culés find the team to be in this first half of the season. Domagoy, hey, how's it going? Telling me I'm looking good. So speaking of live stream, so thanks Domagoy for always being a guest on the show and for joining a little live stream here. So let's start with some listener questions. I promised that I would get to all the Patreon ones, and that is a guarantee. And unfortunately, these came in a little bit after Robbie and I had already done our show. So first, Patreon Mark asked, loving Flick's high tempo and intensity, but if we go down early against one of the big clubs, which, hey, we could see, I don't think Sevilla is necessarily a big club anymore. No offense to Garcia Pimienta, but big clubs in terms of Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. I get what you're saying. So if we go down early against one of the big clubs, how do we think we can adjust to them using our aggression to launch counter after counter? Um, Now, I think this has a lot to do with the players that are starting and the setup that Hansi Flick continues to go with, kind of trusting itself to be what it needs to be. And certain things have to go right, which I had already said they have to win the second ball. Regardless, I think, of the formation, regardless of anything, I think that's across world football. I was just finished watching the Liverpool Chelsea match, and that game ebbed and flowed by which team was winning the second ball. And Liverpool generally won the second ball, which is kind of what prevented Chelsea from getting out and running. And even when they did get out and run, there was, I believe, there in the second half late, a kind of wise, could have been a red card, but a wise yellow card from Kanate, who cut down whoever it was on the wing there getting forward. And that yellow card basically saved that counterattack. So it has a lot to do with being smart with how and where you choose to commit the fouls if they're going to happen. Because again, over the course of 90 minutes against the big clubs, a tactical foul and a yellow is likely going to come up. Like, those are things that are unavoidable in the modern game. Another one of those things that made Sergio Busquets so special was just how he understood what was required of a certain moment. And this is a lot to ask in the name Mark Costado, because this has now come up here. I know Mark, I will get back to the question, but it's kind of off the beaten path here talking about Costado, because when Robbie Lowe and I went through, and I made a special YouTube video on this as well. I cut it out, I should say, and posted it separately about the rotations this week. And I didn't put Costado in any of those starting lineups, including today, which he is starting today, by the way. We'll go over that lineup here in a second. He is starting today, but against Bayern and Real Madrid, I didn't start him. And I got some pushback. And I'm wondering if that pushback came from, we'll say newer fans, or if they came from fans that truly understand just how good and important he has been so far. Because I think what Gabi provides, if healthy, and the reason why I said that Gabi should start against Real Madrid and not against Bayern yet, I think that kind of working him back up to full fitness. And then now with De Jong picking up another injury, it looks like De Jong probably won't feature at all. So I think that puts Costado in the starting lineup. And then the same thing with Olmo. I thought it should have been Olmo starting against Bayern Munich. So now with De Jong out, I think I'm changing my tune a little bit. And Eric Garcia did start today, by the way, too. So that did help out. But now I'm kind of changing my tune that I think against Bayern, now you definitely start Costado, Pedri, and Olmo. And then against Real Madrid, hopefully Gabi at that point is fit to start a match, and you go Gabi, and I'd say Gabi, Pedri, and Olmo. But I think the argument is that Costado might be the kind of guy to help prevent that counter. So again, loving Flick's high tempo and intensity, but if we go down early against one of the big clubs, how do you think we can adjust to them using our aggression to launch counter after counter? I mean, I think again, you have to stick with the game plan and discipline of that high line. And it's going to require Inaki Pena, if the rumors are true, that he's going to start this week in all these matches. Now, Real Madrid's still up in the air, but apparently it has been slipped that he will start against Bayern Munich too. So he's got to be smart off his line. He has to control that space, as in when he comes off his line against that high line, he has to not commit a foul outside the penalty and pick up a red card or anything like that. Because we've seen in years past, even last year against PSG and Araujo, that red card that, yeah, one moment can completely throw a game against the big clubs on their heads. And I don't think that's just about Barcelona. That's about all the big clubs against each other, that anything that happens in a match can have a ripple effect that we know with red cards. And how many Champions League moments do we have in the last 7 years that we can think about? Mark, I did not really answer your question at all, but I think against Sevilla, when we talk more about tactics, I do plan, I feel like in that match, on kind of getting more into how to solve those problems. Here's one from Patron Alvaro. A follow-up would be about timing when to deploy the funds if they become available soon, as Laporta seems to imply. This was about the question that Robbie and I answered on the earlier show this week about the 75 million. If you had 75 million available, would you how would you spend it, and what would happen with that? Now, I gave you 3 names that, a little bit, not tongue in cheek, but I don't think the club would continue to go younger. As I said, it was pie in the sky. I don't think they would, that being Man City, part with the name like Rico Lewis. I had said Rico Lewis. And then up top in Jean Dorlan, I think he's going to go, if he doesn't stay at Aston Villa, because they can pay him quite a bit. But if he does go to another club, I think he stays in the Premier League. Like, why would he come to Barcelona already at 20? Then still not even a starter at Aston Villa. So Robbie very rightly pushed back on that name a little bit. Now, obviously, as a number 9, the name would be, I've heard Jonathan David, who apparently today is asking for a 6 million in salary, which I really honestly think is perfect, but that 6 million number and what he would in theory contribute is a backup, not a starter. And I had said they're going to sell Vitor Roque. We don't know about the future of Ansu Fati. So how much is he going to cost to be your backup? Is it going to be 40 million? Is that what Lille's going to ask? I'm not sure what that is. But in terms of funds, do you go after the next big fish, which would be, I guess Erling Haaland? I'm not really sure about that, right? I think the idea is that Erling Haaland will eventually play for one of the big 2 in Real Madrid and Barcelona. And Real Madrid, just continue to jam him in there as far as try to put as many players as you can, that being Real Madrid, in that attack, and maybe just stop playing with defenders altogether. If Carvajal never recovers and he had that ACL, then David Alaba might have to retire. Who knows? But I say that all tongue in cheek about Real Madrid going after Haaland, but that's certainly going to be the case if Barcelona are going for him at all. And I think what I do want to be very passive about is, I had already said money might be available in January, but now with the Camp Nou, as very expectedly, being pushed back again to potentially not even open until February or March. Now, they still say December. I just don't think that is going to be the case. So if that is then pushed back until February or March, that does then that doesn't push off the idea that revenue is going to come in from gate revenue, which, as I've talked about on my podcast many, many times, is a really important part of Barcelona's revenue. That's why the club were hit as badly as they were. It was the inflated wages on the wage bill, plus it was, again, making a lack of revenue, and that's what cut the spending limit that the club had. Now, obviously, the spending limit has gone up, which shows that there is money that is coming in, that Liga can trust is coming in. So as far as what the club should do with the funds, I don't think those funds will even be available until the summertime, potentially. I know I've been saying it now for 2 years, but it just seems like with the money not coming in from that deal with Libero and trying to find different outlets for money and income coming in. And I say this all very speculatively, like, you could give me the details, but until I can actually see, like, oh, this money arrived and the club is able to report this at a General Assembly, which, by the way, the General Assembly did approve the budget, but that's kind of a thing that you kind of have to approve, because the other option then would be a whole thing about Laporta, and likely it would be a vote of censure and all those different things, and it would get everything complicated. So you don't see real change at those General Assembly votes, especially when you're just talking about was this the annual meeting or the biannual meeting where you approve the budget? So about those funds, I think there might be something to spend in the summertime. And as I kind of said about the last show, it was 3 games that we saw Mark Bernal, and I'm rethinking how that money needs to be allocated. And how good Costado continues to be this season makes you rethink the allocation of that money. How good Lewandowski has been to start this season makes you rethink the allocation of that money because there's an option for him for next season. So, yeah, Rich, you have a question here. My shirt must have worn out, man. What does that mean? This shirt? You mean the Barcelona Podcast shirt that you can buy at the store, which is down in any of the descriptions of any of the YouTube videos? Yeah, maybe mine is getting worn out. And I need to order a new one. That's I think it's the right idea. So maybe I and everyone else in here can order one, and that'd be real nice. So anyway, so that's a question from Patreon Alvaro. A few more questions. We got like 14 minutes, and then I'm gonna move over to BigUp, and again, that is the watch along. We'll have that over there. So I hope everybody migrates over there. And remember, that is in the it's either bigup.com/the Barcelona Podcast. Actually, I'll put it in the chat here so that everybody can join in on that. So again, that is going to be the watch along over there, and that will be at 3:00. So let's do a few more of these questions here. Should the club save some ammo until the summer or act in the winter transfer window? Well, I kind of just already answered that question, that I do not think that there will be funds because the Camp Nou will likely not have received that gate revenue necessary. And again, unless the Nike deal, also that money will likely not be coming until 2025 either, regardless of what the Porta says. I think you're going to wait on that money. So I don't think the winter transfer window is really an idea. That's also why I think Szczesny was signed now. As much as Barcelona could have gone for the Las Palmas keeper in the winter window, I think Szczesny was a goalkeeper signing, and I think the club is generally going to keep it the way it is. Pancho asks, who has made the most improvement since Flick's arrival? Who has surprised you the most, and who do you feel is regressing? Who has made the most improvement? To tell you that I didn't really look necessarily too hard at these beforehand. Felix, should Barca target Jonathan David next season? I actually already looked. I already spoke about Jonathan David. It comes down to what Leo is willing to part with. I mean, yes, I know he's a free agent. So let's already immediately get rid of that Leo idea. But yeah, I mean, at $6 million, I think that's a fair cost for a backup striker. But I guess Lewandowski will stick around. I don't know. I think they should, but I don't think he's going to be the answer. And if you have a striker that you're bringing in that you don't feel like is the answer, then they usually, the fans turn on him quickly and it winds up not really working out. I can't think of the last player. I mean, Jonathan David is, to me, seeing him, this is a bit of hearsay, Paco Alcacer was good at Valencia. I don't want to hear otherwise. He also was a little bit more potential. He was only 23. Jonathan David's a bit 3 years older, but the ceiling that I think the club thinks Paco Alcacer could have had, I think it's the ceiling that Jonathan David probably has. I'm not sure if he is like that top level. I mean, there is a difference between Erling Haaland and Jonathan David. So I would just worry about what you would be signing Jonathan David for. I think he deserves to be a starter somewhere. And if he's being signed to be a backup, I don't really think. Yeah, I don't know. I keep going back and forth on this. All right, back to Pancho's question about who has made the most improvement since Flick's arrival. I said it in the podcast this week. That would be episode 621 with Robbie Lowe. We talked about more of these listener questions. And man, it's hard because Rafinha was so good in the second half of last season. And my answer feels like it's Rafinha. People who listen to me know that I love the NBA. I love basketball. And they say that the hardest thing to do is to go from a star to being a superstar, for being one of those really good players to being like the guy that people talk about. And to me, if that's how I'm quantifying what Rafinha has been under Flick, as in he was good the second half of last season, he looked like, hey, we're a star, we're Rafinha. And then to me, he has been one of the short list of best players under Hansi Flick, maybe if not the best. I said the most important was Lamine Yamal. I said it on the podcast. But yeah, the best player was probably, to me, this season, Rafinha, just with the chances he's created. He's unmatched with his defensive work rate from the attack. So yeah, maybe Rafinha has taken that extra step. I mean, I think Costado was fine under Rafa Marquez last season. I was weary about, how successful he would be. But I mean, I could also make an argument for Costado. I know he wasn't in the first team last year, but to see a player that I was skeptical on as part of the first team last season to now me arguing, hey, should that guy start against Real Madrid over some of the players that we don't know are fully fit or bigger names? That tells you just how important he has been. I don't think he's improved over the course of the season. And then I think the other name is a guy in his 30s, and that's Inigo Martinez. I mean, he has been so good from last season to this season. And to the second part of Pancho's question, who surprised you the most? It's Inigo Martinez. Robbie Lowe had it perfectly on this earlier podcast this week that Inigo Martinez absolutely surprised me at just how important he has been, where you're also arguing that, hey, when Araujo comes back, can you sit Inigo Martinez? I wouldn't sit Kubarsi because I said I think we're underrating him a little bit. And as far as Balde, Kubarsi, I don't think they're regressing at all. And looking up and down the team, this team has lost 2 matches against Monaco, which again was a early red card, so a bit fluky. And then the Osasuna match where they started and rotated as much as they did. And again, I'm not trying to disparage Gerard Martin or Sergio Dominguez, but that was a really, really young back line. And so I think the 2 losses even this season are ones that I put asterisks next to. So I don't think there's a player that I would say is regressing. Koundé has been just as good as he was last year. Pedri, if anything, is a little bit better. Lewandowski has, again, surprised me at how many goals he is scoring. I hope to get more out of Ansu. Fermin Lopez, he's been injured. We haven't seen too much of him at all. Almost been good. I mean, De Jong hasn't really played. So I don't really have a name for you in terms of who's regressing at all this season because the team is, I mean, again, they've only lost 2 matches, and those were, I think, special cases in both of those losses. Here's Peter. Do you think if Ansu will make a return to form this season, or will he leave at the winter window end of the season? Peter, you know that I don't like to talk about Ansu because I get too sad, especially before a match. I really would have liked him to have started this match with Lamine Yamal having that scare with Spain. I would have loved to have Rafinha play on the right wing. Ansu Fati start this one, but it just shows you that Hansi Flick does feel like Lamine Yamal is the most important player for Barcelona, that he cannot rotate him. He cannot sit him for even Sevilla, and he's not getting enough out of Ansu Fati or Pau Victor to start them in this match. So I don't know. It's the end of October. Things are not looking great for Ansu in terms of playing time. With Ferran Torres out, maybe those bench minutes are now going to be going to him for the next few weeks, and maybe he can figure something out from off the bench. And listen, if he gets a goal against Bayern Munich off the bench, or against Real Madrid off the bench, or he scores against his former club in Sevilla off the bench today, one goal could turn things around for Ansu. But yeah, I'm getting sad. Will Gabi be a starter once he's fully fit, provided he returns to his previous level? 100%, absolutely. Pedri, Casado, Eric Garcia, De Jong, Olmo, I can say whoever it may be. Gabi, as I've said, is the most exciting player under Hansi Flick, at least that I'm waiting for and expecting to see. Gabi perfectly fits the things that Hansi Flick wants to do. And I think a fully fit Gabi at the level that he was out for the first 2.5 months of last year before he went down was the best player Barcelona had. I thought to start last season, maybe a tie with Koundé. And so, yeah, I think Gabi is absolutely consummately a starter. All right, Jared, let's see. With the current system, if the club gets significant money in, I would love for some of it to go to signing Frimpong. Frimpong is kind of a similar idea as to why I said Rico Lewis. I just think Rico Lewis for Man City fits the idea of Barcelona a little bit better. But, another name actually I didn't say. I said Duran, but you want to talk about a striker who Barcelona should be going with. It's Boniface of Bayer Leverkusen. The Nigerian striker has been excellent now for going on 2 seasons. He's probably 65 million though, or 55 million. So he's probably outside of the realm that Barcelona would be going for. But he's a guy who puts himself on the end of balls. He's somebody who's going to press really well for that system. I think Boniface, he's also 25, I think he is, or that's the tough thing about doing things live. You can't really check things that. Let's see, Boniface of Leverkusen. Victor Boniface is, he's only 23, even better. 23 years old. And I would be really excited. Unfortunately, today, crazy that he comes up. He was in a scary car accident today, I guess. So again, that's breaking news. Didn't even see that until right now. So fortunately, it seems like he's okay from that. But that's the name that I actually wish I had said. And because of how good Bayer Leverkusen was, it's all the other giants kind of circling around. If Barcelona got Frimpong, I've said Florian Wirtz, regardless of even the talented midfielders they have, no offense to Guy Fernandez and Tony Fernandez and the young players that I would love to see and can save Barcelona money, Florian Wirtz, the idea of him going to Real Madrid makes my blood run cold. The idea that Wirtz would replace Modric, that's horrifying to me in ways I can't explain to you. But yeah, Florian Wirtz, I would love to see him at Barcelona, Frimpong, Bonavasi. So yeah, I think Leverkusen would be the team that if I'm Barcelona, I'd love to just pick up a few of those players and put them right on the Barcelona bench and fill out that bench quite a bit. Harmon asks, I mean, perks to our guys for being the good with the high line, but do you think we'd be able to keep that up against Bayern and most importantly against Real Madrid? I think this is the way that Barca are playing with that high line. Now, obviously, we saw it almost taken it to its extreme against Alaves before the break with what was that, like 13 times when the high line was pushed into or needed for an offside situation. I think what I think is going to happen is something is going to go wrong. Again, it's Bayern Munich, it's Real Madrid. They're going to score a counterattacking goal. It's how you stick to it and with what chances do you take and what that pressure on the other side requires of you. Because yes, they're running a risk that they're going to give up a goal or two on the counter. But if Barcelona scored 2 goals because of the pressure they're putting Bayern Munich and Real Madrid, because that's the argument, right? Xavi wanted to play a certain way, and I'm not disparaging Xavi because I think even Ernesto Valverde did a similar thing, that if you want to play a certain way, it means that you're trying to get something out of it, right? And if you're only just giving up the thing that you're risking, right? The risk is the high line. But if the benefit is keeping Bayern Munich and Real Madrid kind of pinned back and scoring goals by pressuring them, then that's a good thing, right? Then you're going to be willing to deal with that risk. Because again, you're not just taking a risk with a high line, there is a reward. And the reward is wearing them down and putting them under pressure and controlling the match, which Barcelona have done really well this season in controlling matches. Again, not 90 minutes. That's not going to happen, but they've had much more control this season than in previous seasons. And it's not just about Xavi, but again, before him in Koeman and in Kike Setien, remember that. And even Valverde in Europe, of course. I mean, his team struggled to keep control. I mean, Arturo Vidal, I think back to him, is not a player that was known for all that control and things like that. Fot said, you should do this more often. Well, listen, I'll tell you this. If the people who are watching on this live stream right now head over to BigUp with me and we all kind of migrate together, then maybe I'll continue to do these more often. Again, this is about 3 hours straight of me talking then, and it can be difficult. Then I do my 5 headlines. So it's a full day. And as people know, I do it more out of a labor of love than really for the money. Everybody in the chat is letting me know that Fati as Eric Garcia, unfortunately, was injured in the pregame. So is it Fati who has been selected for that starting lineup? Looks like that seems to be the case. All right, everyone's saying yes. So, yep, it seems like Ansu gets the start. So, all right, everything I just said, this is huge for Ansu. That's kind of a bummer that Eric Garcia got hurt because you do lose a player off your bench. Now there really is no defensive midfielders or other options to come off the bench other than Gabi, who's coming off almost a year out. Was it 335 days? Yeah. So Turkle asks, hey, big fan, always watch your videos. How hard is it to reintegrate the injured players in the midfield, Gabi and Young, especially now that we don't have a real defensive midfielder? The good news is because Pedri and Costa were fit, and I was about to say Eric Garcia was fit, you could have brought them along slowly. Same thing with Christensen being out. That's not helpful. Fortunately, maybe you play Dami Olmo a little bit deeper, but he's also not fully fit. So I think there are concerns. Fermin Lopez isn't going to play in that position. I think you're going to ask quite a bit of Pedri and Costa. Costa's got to go 90 today. With Eric hurt, Costa has to go 90. So Ansu Fati starting. Let's see. Seder, I think we'll end with this point, and then I'm going to stop this live stream, and we're going to all move over to BigUp. If you can, remember that link. I'm going to put that link in here again. So there you go. Everybody move over there with me. It's free it's not even to join, but you don't even have to create a thing where that was just for the beta, no promo code. So you can come in. Let's see. Dreamless is Wirtz, Musiala, Davies, Trent, Nico, Dio Costa. I mean, those are fantastic names. So, I mean, again, I think Wirtz changes your fortune more than any of those players, honestly, in the future. I actually do rate Wirtz just a little bit higher than Musiala for reasons that I don't want Bayern Munich fans to come after me for. Davies kind of pushes Balde, and Balde just had his 21st birthday the other day. So, so I'm not too worried about that. And Sader says, how do they change the lineup now 5 minutes before? Well, they have to because Eric Garcia got hurt. I mean, guys get hurt. That's what happens. So at this point, yeah, it looks like Ansu is starting. And that means that Rafinha is going to be playing the 10. That's what this means, actually. So we've seen Rafinha play the 10 before, and I said Rafinha has been Barcelona's best player this season. So it's time for him to continue to have that moniker. So Sandra, yeah, you can actually, I'm ending the stream now, so you can go back and actually watch my answer to that question. But for now, everybody join me on BigUp. And again, hopefully some exciting stuff going on over there as well. So again, this was the first ever live stream preview for the Barcelona Sevilla game. Hope everybody enjoyed it. And I'll see you in just a few minutes on BigUp, or if you were watching just on YouTube, hey, like, subscribe, all that stuff. This was great. I saw the numbers of how many people were watching. That's pretty cool. So I'm glad that so many people responded so positively to this. And I'll see you on BigUp in a minute. Forza Barca.